Alrighty, we should, in theory, be live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Path Live. I am joined today by a wonderful group of crazy individuals. On my left is IronDan Dan from the Discord. Beneath Dan is Dan number 2, Dan Brooke, both Team Red Path members, not confusing at all. And then we also have Aiden from Disgustingly Resilient joining us from the stinky side of chaos. Gentlemen, it is really hype to see you all here. And the reason that we're all here today is because we are all going to the Manchester Major, which is happening next week, run by the UKTC. It's going to be super, super hype. 3 of us are bringing World Eaters. 1 of us is bringing Deck Guard. I'll let you work that one out for yourselves. But we are going to be talking a little bit about what we hope from this tournament for our results, how we're going to do, etc., etc., and of course, our lists. We're going to dive pretty deep into them. We're also going to help Aiden pick his list today, I think, is the plan. So yeah, let's kick this one off. How are we all doing, gentlemen? Let's start with you, Aiden. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Like I said, a bit of list indecision, as we'll get to later. But no, I'm doing really good. Just painting up some Votan because I sure as hell don't need to paint any more Death Guard. But yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Nice, very nice indeed. And hello, of course, to everyone in chat who's joining us. Do drop us a message or whatever you want inside there. We'll touch base with that as we go along. I'll move on now to Dan Brooke. Dan, how are you doing today, man?
Hey mate, yeah, great, thank you. Pleasure to be here as always, and yeah, excited to get into some nitty gritty.
Absolutely. And finally, Iron Dan, how are you, man?
Very well, thank you, Dara. Thank you for having me back on. It was a blast last time. I'm looking forward to going through it. I am knee deep in painting models, hands covered in glue and everything, trying to get ready. It's been like a 6-week slog from grey primer to fully painted army, but excited.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. It's going to be pretty good. I'm also in a similar boat of rush painting the last of my list because surprisingly, I always find myself still having to paint some stuff before AGT, despite having tens of thousands of points of World Eaters. But here we are painting a bunch more Jackals. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Yeah, so Manchester is going to be an interesting one. It's one of the bigger GTs that the UKDC actually runs. I think it might be like the 3rd or 4th biggest in the year, which is pretty hype. And there's going to be in and around, I think, 300-ish people going there, between 2 and 300 anyway, which is pretty exciting. And we've got a pretty fun meta ahead of us, I think, with a lot of Custodes and a lot of Necrons. So how are we kind of like feeling about the tournament as a whole going into it? Aiden, how are you feeling about Deck Guard facing into what you're probably going to be seeing? A lot of gold and a lot of metal.
Gold. Quite happy about that one. Probably more so than you lot. My main fear at the moment is probably like that. I don't know if you've seen the Dark Angels Iron Storm list that's been kind of going around.
That's a nasty one.
That's a bit of a concern for Death Guard. Robots, Crons is kind of a weird one. It's like 50-50. But not too bad about everything else. Feeling pretty confident. I think Death Guard's in a little bit of a better space than World Eaters is currently. No offense. But yeah, I'm fairly happy going into it, to be honest. It'd be good to get some practice on the table. I've only had a couple of practice games, but you played the army like 50 times already. You already know most things, it works, and it's not like the balanced data slate completely redesigned my army. Yeah. I just lost 10 points here, gained 10 there, etc. So I think should be okay, should be all right. Feeling fairly confident, but I don't think we're going any 5-0s or anything like that.
Yeah, so what is your goal for this one? Like, are you hoping to get like a nice 4-1, nice, or kind of 3-2 sort of vibe? Where are you sitting with it?
So always aim to go 3-2, but my standard is sort of a 4-1. So I'd like to get 4-1. Because like you said, this is one of the bigger UK events, so trying to get the UKTC points. So go like this, London
points,
Leeds
yeah.
probably. Yeah, give me them points. I found out recently, apparently the ITT, the teams tournament, counts towards the singles points. So I got a 5th place finish in that one, so that's pretty good. So I was like, okay, num points. But yeah, just a 4-1 would be like happy Aiden. 5-0, which has happened like once or twice before, would be like super happy Aiden. And then 3-2 would still be like, I'm okay with that. that's an okay that. 2 and 3, I'm shutting down my channel. I'm
Yeah, that's
quitting.
fair.
I'm selling Death Guard. I'm gonna go pick up World Eaters. They're clearly a better army.
I'm right there with you. If I go 2 and 3, it's over for me. All credibility is out the window. Mr. Dan Brooke, how are you feeling about this current meta that the world leaders are living in, and where you're sitting with it going into the Manchester GT? Like, what do you want out of this weekend coming up?
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty happy and pretty stable with my list at the moment. I've had it run for a couple of weeks now, and a friend of mine would be quite interested to hear what Aiden is planning on his list later, because I've been doing a lot of practice into Death Guard with my buddy Tank, and he's got his like list kind of like in place at the moment. So it's been a good struggle getting those kind of reps in and getting kind of like the ironing out all the kind of like mistakes, and still learning temp really. Still a lot of nuances, especially in the charge phase, that I'm still trying to get my head around after all these months. Like kind of like what I guess you guys have kind of said just then, that getting that 3 and 2 would be nice. But it won't be the be all and end all. I think just trying to place it against some different armies that I'm not used to in my local gaming group and stuff like that would be pretty cool. So
Nice.
yeah, just mainly going to have fun, I think.
Yeah, it's always good to catch up with the homies as well. It warms my heart every time I find you at an event, to be honest. So
well, I was in last time I kind of saw you like, Dad, could chat, like, no, I've got to bolted right past you.
Yeah, you literally were running past me.
Yeah, needed the toilet like nobody's business.
Listen, it happens to the best of us.
It does.
Yeah, and then Dan, how are you feeling? This is, am I right in saying your first GT that you're going to be going into?
Yeah, exactly. So I've done like one teams tournament before, but Aiden's like over the years, as Aiden's tried to get me to like just do a tournament, do one day, and I've always kind of like fobbed it off, because much like a lot of people, you have that tournament anxiety. But after you called me out in the Discord and straight up challenged me and said, "You're coming to Manchester," I just took it. I just said, you know what? Why not? Like, let's go.
After he blackmailed me.
After I twisted his arm and forced him to go, he really didn't have much of a choice after that.
But genuinely, it's been exciting, because I found that working to a deadline has just literally got me from like grey plastic to a full army. So I really just want to turn up, play some games. If I win any, wonderful. But I'm certainly not bothered about like where I'm going to rank. I'm hoping that if I do kind of catch the tournament bug, that maybe it will like take me into a place where I can maybe begin to covet those points. But certainly for me, my first tournament, I'm just showing up, playing some games, meet you guys, and just have a good time with them.
Yeah, get some reps.
Hey Dan, there's nothing like a tournament to get you like in your painting zone, right? To get
100%. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's actually amazing how much stuff you get painted when you are like, stress painting for a tournament, because like in a normal like state of mind, I'll be like, yeah, I'll paint like one jackal in 2 weeks, and today I painted like 10 in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So incredible what pressure does to a man. But
there's a running joke, just real quick. There's a running joke, because I've known Dan, Danny Parkinson, so IronDan Dan, this Dan, not that Dan, from university. There was a running joke that Dan never bases his models because he's so indecisive on his paint scheme. And he can't get it down. And because of this tournament, he's obviously, as we know, the battle ready rules that you have to have it based. He sent a picture of his first one based, and like my friends chat just like explode. It was like honestly like he's won the lottery or something. Everyone was cheering.
The first horseman of the apocalypse is showing up, and it's Dan's bases.
Very, literally, you couldn't be like, the minute I posted it, everyone was like, fake news, not real.
Not real. See, AI.
AI. So
amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's like, a pretty nice spread of like people that we got on today, in terms of like, obviously, like, some people coming to their first GT, myself and Aiden, pretty seasoned vets. Dan, also pretty seasoned vet at this point too. I myself undecided about how I want to do. I think I'm in a similar boat to Aiden, maybe not quite aspiring for the 5-0. That's like quite a distant dream for me, I think, but I think definitely 4-1 are in my sights. Like, I would really, really love a cheeky 4-1, but I know that's going to be pretty tough, especially considering I'm bringing a non-optimal list. But we'll get to that one. I think a 3-2 I'll be quite comfortable with, and yeah, in a similar boat to Aiden, if I go 2 and 3, this will probably be the last video you ever see on the Red Path. So
Shut
I
it
hand it
down.
over to someone more worthy than myself. And the UKTC always stresses me out because like the average player skill is so much higher there than at like most other events. You know, you can never really take anyone for granted. I
find having like people having access to TTS has made the standard. Like I saw at Coventry, everyone kept saying to me who I played, oh, getting reps in on TTS and stuff like that. So you find a lot more people are going with a lot more practice than just turning up to most people like first tournaments.
Yeah, and it turns out getting practice is key to getting good. And when people get a lot more practice, they get a lot more good. So
you can't just armchair rules and armies and decide that that's how you win games. How weird.
Now I know you're trying to do that, Dan.
That's for the Tau players.
There's no Tau players left after this Codex release. It's fine. They're going extinct. They've been hunted to extinction by Crude, which I'm all here for. Jack in chat says I have to go 5-0 or I'm off the channel. So I guess that's that.
Don't forget our deal, Dara. We still got that.
Yeah.
Which one of us can claim the most Custodes kills?
Yeah.
One of your members is set as a scoreboard. Like, is it like a sister's like a point?
I think sisters are like 1 point. Yeah, and something like
Wardens
that.
Wardens are like 3
I like
points.
a good challenge, especially something in a tournament with Dara. So
yeah, Dan,
feel free to join in.
Dan Brooke always what we should all do is do this challenge. So I think it was like a collaboration. You called me out on it, Aiden, and then Warboss in our Discord really like picked up hard on it. But basically, we are having a competition to see how many custodes we can kill, and we get points for every custodian we kill. But I think because I always have a competition with Dan Brooke at every tournament that we go to, be it like how many kills we can get with Gorefather, and loads of other stuff like that. So yeah, I think what we'll do now is we'll try and hunt custodes, because let's face it, there's gonna be a hell of a lot of the golden boys there, and they're going to be unpleasant for 3 of us here, and maybe not so unpleasant for Aiden, who is able to to take that game a little bit better. But honestly, I think I've got the custodes cracked. I know a lot of people don't like playing them, but I think I've got them cracked open at this point. So yeah, let's start talking about lists and stuff like that, because that's probably what people want to hear most about. Who wants to go first? Anyone want to volunteer themselves to talk about their list first?
Do you want to leave your spicy list to last?
Let's do Dan Brooke first. So yeah, we'll leave the most spicy list to last. I'm gonna have Dan's list pop up on the screen here, or at least it should. Oh, I need to move this down. Hang on a sec. There we go. Perfect. So Dan, your list is on screen right now. Why don't you talk to us about this list titled "Kill, Maim, Burn"?
The classic title for a World Eater, right there.
Truly, yeah.
So I was talking with you, Dara, about like kind of, you see the World Eater list doing well at the moment over in the States with a lot different terrain, and so it's kind of like building a list to the UKTC because the terrain system, is so different. I think so. I don't have like you see like the Lord of Skulls in. I don't have that in mind. I don't think it will do too well, in my opinion, on that type of terrain. You'll get angles, but you'll find, like, especially after going to Coventry with a knight, like one of the big boy knights, I found that I struggled to move around the terrain a lot, and had to be forced down certain avenues of like routes where you get like targeting lanes and people can easily outmaneuver you and stuff like that. So I've tried to keep the points where I feel they'll be better used, and that is in a lot of battle lines. So we've got obviously Angron. I think I know me and you kind of differ on having him in or not, especially at Coventry. Don't know if your mind's changed it.
No, it's just me being pedantic and problematic, honestly. It's the right choice. I'm just being
I think he's great. Yeah. And I just I seem to roll really well on my 8 blessings dice. So, I just kind of throw them away, see what you can do, see what carnage and distraction you can do. And he is a big distraction kind of effect, really, isn't he?
Yeah. And your Angron is gorgeous. So, you want to have him on the table.
Thank you. I've been running Khorne since start of temp as well. I know he's a little bit more expensive now, but I think he's just great for what he does leading a unit with the rerolls and stuff like that. Invocatus, kind of that pre-game move's always really good, and he just seems to be able to leave him on his own, survive, and block out some like screening in the backfield. So that's what I kind of tend to do with him. He doesn't normally leave one of the units of 8 pound AC on screen.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, kind of wish I had a Juggernaut Lord as well in here, just to be able to as well expand that screening. But I just don't have the model painted. I'm not rushing. I know it's like a week and a bit away, but I'm just not rushing it. And of course, last leader is the Master of Executions. Slightly nerfed, obviously, with the changes to the Berserker Glaive, but I think he's still really killy.
He's still money.
Don't know.
Yeah, he'll still kill
Yeah.
so much stuff.
Yeah. Then the battle, like I say, battle line. This is mainly, I know that a lot more units of 8-bound and more is kind of like competitively seen at the moment. But this list is also kind of like what I've got painted to a nice standard. So it tends to be like I've got a lot of berserkers in here. Still do a really good job going off like just targeting something or being in the way, so they can kill if you roll well as well. So they're expensive. I don't know what you guys think for a 5, but
yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I mean they're a really good answer to like things like Catan, and the Blood Surge. If you kind of mess around with it correctly, like I think it's still really annoying. I don't know, like Aiden, how do you feel about like facing into like Berserker specifically? Do you find it annoying to deal with the Blood Surge mechanic, or how do you kind of see it?
Blood Surge can be annoying because some of the things like even getting the movement off like indirect is quite annoying because it's daft things that can happen. Like suddenly it's walked onto my objective, and especially because now my sticky objectives get checked every phase start. It's not like if I shoot you and you move onto it with enough OC, and not have enough shooting to take you off it, then I actually lose my sticky, which could have been like a big sustained hits 2 or something like that. So that's quite annoying to deal with. Plus mass hits at like strength. What strength are they now on the charge? Like strength 7 or something.
Charge, yeah.
6, which is still past my break point of 5. Mass damage 1 attacks is pretty grim. You got the guy there with the 2 damage cleaver as well. They're still quite annoying berserkers. I'll give it you. Also means flamers can be a bit rough because let's say you go around a corner, you get an angle, you flame it. There's a good chance like you're probably going to be like 8 maybe away at best.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you could be like anything like 4 or 5. You could risk spraying it and then getting basically charged for free because of the blood surge, and that's something that you don't really want happening, because then it's like controlling you, it's locking you down. So like they're an annoying unit. They are an annoying unit. They are, however, definitely. I'm glad you got the 2 rhinos in there because they are a squishy unit because they are just a marine at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And those rhinos are doing just that. They are holding the berserkers in there. I did have an extra unit that was on foot, but I found they either got killed by indirect or they just weren't bringing the kind of the value into the list. I traded those for the 2 units of spawn, and I find they do such a mega job, especially when you pop the Feel No Pain, and they've got the 4-up Feel No Pain. Am I right?
Yes, it's so good.
Yeah, so
it's so nasty.
They've become a pain. Like I say, my friend Tank, he fired pretty much 3 predators, 2 plague burst crawlers into them, and only just like he wanted to shoot other stuff, but only just when you start rolling well, you know what it's like, and you see your opponent getting more and more anxious and annoyed at you. Is that?
Yeah,
and
it's a beautiful thing to spawn, really, and like they regen the wounds in every command phase as well. They have like the old accursed cultist regeneration, so it's just like
it's beautiful,
beautiful utility piece. I love them.
Yeah. And then to round off the list, I've got the 3 8 exalted 8-bound and the 2 units of 3 8-bound. Ideally, this would be like a unit of 6 exalted 8-bound. Speaking with Dara about kind of like having a bigger brick of those to hit something and really delete it, but that just comes down to what models have available at this point. Kind of like then looking at what you would trade for bringing it to a unit 6 later date. But for now, that's the list, and we'll get lots of reps into Death Guard. So to see if I even played Death Guard, I probably won't go anywhere near any of them.
It's always the way, isn't it? What do we think about this list, guys? How are we all feeling about it? Let's start with you, Aiden. How do you feel? How would you feel like playing into this list?
So bias on Death Guard is like it's just a bad matchup in my opinion for World. It's not great.
Yeah, it's not.
But Master Execution's still super glad you've got him. Fights First is still an absolute pain to deal with. Angron's interesting because obviously he's just you can really win the lottery on him and bring him back. I don't know if you still use Angron like a missile. You probably can, but obviously
yeah.
But with the
exactly.
To be honest, though, what I do like about Angron in this one is if you do come across something like the Ironstorm thing, one Angron's got Fly, which means you can charge the Flyer, which is really nice because the rest of your forces can't do anything to that thing. So having something that can swat a Storm Raven is really nice. And the Ironstorm lists have a lack of screening quite a lot. They tend to like bring like 5 infiltrators. So if you get first turn and you just ram Angron in there, there's a good chance Angron can, especially if they've deployed close, you could potentially tag like 2 vehicles and pop them both.
Yeah.
Which is quite devastating when their entire list is obviously a lot of points in every individual vehicle. If you get in there and just pop 2 of them off the bat, I think it's
Aiden, if
it's-
you don't mind, I find that having when the Plague Marine bricks with the fight first going, that's where kind of like for me the World Eaters struggle, because if we get that charge off, I find that, or if you can team it up, if you hang back and wait for the charge, then there's a good chance you could delete those units before they even get to swing. So
Yeah. And on that,
it's always funny when there's a
Muffins Company in chat has a question: if Berserkers with Mo Blood Surge into engagement range with Plague Marines with Fell Blight Spawn, who fights first? I believe it would be the Berserkers, because they don't count as a charging unit when they fight in, so it counts as an ongoing combat. And that's presuming the Berserker's Blood Surge in on the Death Guard player's turn. So, from my understanding, I think that would mean the Berserkers fight first. Do you think I'm
that's
correct?
how I've been playing it.
I don't know, because the fights first would put the activating unit of Plague Marines in the fight first category.
Oh, that's
and the
true,
Berserkers would be below that, so they would still activate first.
Yes. Yeah.
I think the Plague Marines still go first.
It's only if you were charged. So it's if you two fights first units charge, it's whoever's turn it isn't is the one that fights first, I believe. This fights first, nullifies fights first. Weirdly. For the charging side.
Yes. Long story short, we're not exactly sure.
As always.
It's always funny though, having a Master Execution squad and like a Plague Marine squad that fights first. You both just stood there like, "Come on, bro, make a move, bro."
Exactly that. That's exactly how my practice games have been. Like a unit of 10 and a unit of 10 just like kind of facing off, and just like the side of the little walls in the middle.
Yeah, it's a funny one for sure. I like the list though. I think it's got good play into a variety of opponents. Like the 2 spawn units and the Jackal unit will score you so much victory points, and having 2 rhinos in there means you can do like a lot of rhino drifting and like messing around with secondaries and stuff like that. So I think it's got like a lot of utility, and it still has like some really key hammers and stuff. And then depending on how Ron does, like he is that slot machine of like, well, he's either going to win me the game or lose me the game. So yeah.
Yeah, if you can kill something and then come back, you've got 400 plus points, right? Which is great. So
I think for me, it's very similar to mine, and it's probably something that I would try. So one of the things that I found in my games, and Dara, you have discussed this, is spawn at the minute for World Eaters, I think are nearly an essential trade out for lots of lists that currently use the Juggernaut. And the reason is that for most, especially with the way our points went up, you've always got one squad of Jackals on your home, right? You usually will take another squad of Jackals to either go out in the middle, tempting target, scout it forward, be a screen. So you really, most World Eaters lists are only playing with 2 disposable pieces. And I'm currently playing, spoiler, 2x2 spawn in my list, and every time I've tried them, they've always scored me either some points or they've managed to mess with my opponent's scoring, and you can't do that with the Juggernaut unless he's already given up his favorite Khorne. Exactly.
I mean, the beautiful thing of 2 spawn is you can run them into a Custodian Warden brick and say, do you want to pop your Feel No Pain? Because if you don't, you might actually lose a Warden, which is hilarious. And they could always like not kill them. I don't know. It's just like, and even for like drifting them into a Warden unit to like pull attacks away from your main push and stuff. Like they have so much play into that. They're brilliant into Eldar, into the MSU Eldar, because they're like your peak run into that corner and hunt down that 5-man MSU squad or whatever. Into Death Guard, they could be useful, I guess, until they're like, I'm going to pull attacks away.
So against Death Guard, the one thing that they can do for you that nothing else in your list can do there is if you put, so especially Death Guard at the moment is actually quite shooting focused. If you put any of your like Rhino or your Exalted 8 bound on an objective to hold it, I can kill it. I can shoot it off. Having spawn on your list gives you something to put out to force a reaction from me. Otherwise, obviously you'll score primary, and then even when it dies, you can sticky it anyway. Correct?
Yeah.
With your
Yeah.
strategy.
For a CP, yeah.
So it gives you that unit to initiate an exchange with your opponent,
Yeah.
whereas without the spawn there, I mean, you've got jackals, but again, it's like you said, you might want your jackals on your home to sticky that or whatnot, or to screen out your backfield. But you can't be doing those kind of like initiating engagements with like free 8 bound because sure, you want to spend free 8 bound to sticky your point when you die. I'll take that trade, mate. I'll blast them
Yeah,
away.
100%.
Couple spawn, and the annoying thing is the spawn as well. Especially a lot of Death Guard at the moment are dropping to 2 Plagueless Crawls, especially with Morty because they're quite expensive now. 2 PBCs, even with the Morty buffs, that's really iffy if that picks up that spawn. Like, feel no pains. And again, if you don't kill it, it's going to heal as well, which means it's even more a pain in the ass next turn. Whereas if it was, again, 10 Jackals, I can guarantee I can kill 10 Jackals pretty much.
Yeah.
Especially with, like, say, the multi buff, ignoring the modifiers and that.
Yeah.
It's, you're pretty much picking them up, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think the other thing about Dan's list that I really like, and this is the one thing that I probably after the GT will play around with, is Khorne. So I think Khorne is so huge for World Eaters, and if we had an extra 100 points, I would just have Khorne naked in the Rhino for what he brings, like flat damage 3. He's got innate fight on death. You can put him into a unit, and you're getting value out of him. It doesn't matter if he charged or not. And I think that him being one of the other sources of 3 damage in our book just makes him something that people don't want to go near.
Yeah, World Leaders are so horny for 3 damage at the minute, and like I'm here for it, you know.
Yeah. So
Do you know what's funny with Khorne? You can charge him into a unit of Wardens. He's in a because he always fights on death, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah. So funny thing is when Khorne fights on death, he's flat 3 damage, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you charge into Custodes, they pop fight first and then kill you first. You then swing on death, and because of the way the rules commentary has made it, fighting on death doesn't target a unit, which means they can't reactively use -1 damage.
Yeah.
Which means you're flat free and you're going to kill a guy every single swing.
It's so funny.
Which is really funny because Warden's like, "Oh, I'll fight first," and you're like, "Thanks, mate. You're doing me a favor. I'll die, but you're dying too."
Yeah, I mean it's literally just profit, right? Because you're just like, cool, you spend CP, I'm fighting on death, you're losing Wardens. I don't know. They probably wouldn't have like proactively thrown up the feel no pain as well, I'm guessing. So yeah, I think it's a
because they're like, "I'll fight first. I'll just kill you."
Yeah, exactly. That's a great meme. I love that one for Khorne, and it's relevant for any instance of like fighting on death with World Leaders. You don't have access to any fight on death, right, Aiden? It's all just.
No, I have no fight on death.
Yeah.
Big sad.
Yeah,
it's a good fight.
Dara, you commented on your latest video, which is dealing with Custodes, didn't you?
Mm.
About pit selecting with the blessings fight on death, so you've got that 4-up chance to even do an extra couple of wounds and damage to.
Yeah, it's especially good for the Wardens because when you're fighting on death, the chances of them having the 4-up feel no pain up are like quite slim. It would be a weird instance in which they did, I think. So it's a beautiful way of countering them. So I really like that you've got Khorne in there, and the Mo as well is also just like it's the same with the glaive. He's 3 damage, right? More money, more problems when you're going into Custodes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me it's just like it's a great list. It's a toolbox list. It can do so many things. It can play well into so many different meta armies at the minute. I don't know if it necessarily has something it struggles super hard into. But yeah, I think it's an A+.
Not too sure on that one. Actually, I don't know. I haven't quite decided yet which the 10-man goes with. It goes with the Mo or with the with Khorne.
I think it depends on the game,
having
right?
the 10-man with Khorne as well.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. Let's do some deck guard next. All right, let's do Aiden's list indecision. So Aiden has 2 lists here and wants us to pick one that he's going to play. I've already made my selection, but what we're going to do is throw up list number 1 here for Aiden. So this is Aiden's How to Rust Gold. I think it's a beautiful name, and it's definitely my favorite version of the list. But Aiden, why don't you walk us through this one and how it's going to play?
So this is a list designed to make every Custody player hate the life. This has been tamed down, but this is rocking about 26 anti-infantry flamers. The original had 32, so I actually became a bit more sensible with it and put some more scoring units in. So this is kind of go wide Death Guard. So we have a million torrent weapons. Most of them are anti-infantry 2 plus. The ones that are anti-infantry 4 plus have full rerolls to wound. So that kind of like negates that. And basically it's kind of just go wide Death Guard. Really punishes sort of like mid-range arm. I won't lie, you will not want to run into this thing as world eaters. Sorry.
No, I've played it with yeah, it's grim. I'll let you explain it.
So
the
much stinky
nuances,
fire.
It is a
yeah.
bit grim. So there's a lot of stinky fire. It's got a bit of it's a bit more toolboxy, this one, and the other list is a bit more blunt. This one has playcasters, which are really fun in a rhino. So out the top of the rhino, you're gonna get 2d6 plus 6 shots at strength 6, AP potentially 3 because of -1 save, and D3 damage each, with auto hitting with the ignores, and you can get ignores cover. So that's really spiking damage. I played against War Dogs last week, and they were consistently taking about 10 wounds off a War Dog on activation, which is kind of grim.
That's so disgusting. I hate it. It's like you're playing Dark Elder or something.
It's so stupid. And the problem is it's so unpredictable because you've got 2 of them in there, and it can vary from 4 shots all the way up to 9 shots per guy. And it can be potentially like 3 damage or 1 damage each shot. The guy like, what's the estimated damage a unit? And I'm like, could be 4, could be 38. Don't really know. Which is quite funny for people to put maths into. And also it makes people really not want to put -1 damage on stuff because like, oh, you could just roll 1 damage, and it's like, yeah, I could just roll 1 damage. Could also roll 3 damage. But they have a bit of utility as well. So while they're in the rhino, they're firing that out the top, but outside of the rhino, so you can get them out either solo or with 5-man plague marines, depending on matchup. They have an 18-inch. You do it in the shooting phase, but it's -1 to wound in the fight phase. Don't know why it's that timing, but it is. Don't ask. Which is pretty good because it means you can put it on like a Custodes unit, slam a PBC into the side of them. Now they're wounded on 6s, and you can just sit there forever. Pay 2 command points if you want for -1 damage and keep that unit there because Custodes don't have any fallback and charge, so you just laugh at them. I have 2 of them for the reason that I understand Custodes will go, I'll just pay 2, I'll pay a CP for +1 to it. No, you won't, I'll just do it again. So there's 2 -1 to wounds because they can stack because they don't put a named effect on you. So you can enjoy your -2 to wound to negate your +1 to wound.
That's so gross.
Also has the added bonus of whenever those flamers hit you, you are -2 to move and charge, and it stacks again because they didn't put a name on it. So -4 to move and -4 to charge, which means a Custodes unit will be moving 2 and charging at -4. So if you stay 12 inches away, they will move to 8, and then it'll be an 8-inch charge with -4. Have fun.
I feel sick.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'm like, I want you to bring this list, I also want you to bring it on the condition that you just don't pair me at Manchester, because that would fucking suck so much for me. Yeah.
I've missed a guy off here. There's actually a Far Blight spawn, so one of these 10-man squads is actually fight first in it as well.
Oh my god, that's on me, I think. Yeah.
Even more fun for you. You've got the Lord of Virulence with the full Death Shroud brick. So when that comes down, that's going to be 8 anti-infantry flamers on Overwatch with full rerolls to wound, which is pretty grim. I think I shot that at some Custodes shield guard last week, and I killed 3 guys and dropped 1 to 1 wound from the Overwatch, which is kind of horrific. So then we got some just cultists and stuff for like objective play. All the Plague Marines have an anti-infantry 2 plus flamer, melter gun, plasma gun, and then 3 power fists because I just get that many special weapons apparently. It's got bloat drones again with more flamers to sort of just move around. They've got fallback, shoot, and charge, so they're just going to sort of be there to do. It's kind of made for tactical, this one, because I want the command points, which is very strange because Death Guard I'm normally on fixed. But this can actually play.
Look like a very tactical kind of list, though.
It can play tactical pretty well.
Yeah,
it has got a unit of Nurglings as well, which I forgot to tell you about. So we got a bit more again tactical play there.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So you got 2 units of cultists. You can always put 1 in reserves. They have scout, so you can pre-game move. But one of the fun things against Custodes is if you get first turn on like quarters deployment, because it's the new UKTC and they've put 6 objectives now. If you deploy on the line with cultists, your scout move, if you get first, can touch both central objectives, which then the command phase will sticky them, and then you can pull back and you just set all your flamers to stare at the middle and be like, I'm going to score minimum hold 3 on primary unless you step out into the middle of the open where I'm just waiting with all my flamers.
Yep.
do something about it.
It's amazing, yeah, and we can
Um,
do that too. Just for World Leader players to know, because you can scout jackals on with Invo sticky, and then bye.
Yeah, people get too caught up in the got a scout 8 bound. It's like, no, you can do some dirty things with
No.
just sticky, and sticky can just change the tempo of a game completely
Yeah.
Yeah.
and make your opponent have to come to the middle with something. Especially good versus I did it against Knights. I got first turn, did the same, and they had to put 2 War Dogs forward, which basically I got to pick up 2 War Dogs for free.
Amazing. Yeah.
Whereas normally they just like take the very far side objectives. But yeah, then obviously we got the triple plea BC. So they've got flamers. One of them's got an entropy cannon just because sometimes you need a las cannon to pop like a rhino or something.
Yeah.
It's more of a mind game. People really obsessed with where your las cannons are, and they'll dodge the line of sight, and then you just look at them and you're like, it's not that scary, but you don't tell them that.
Yeah, no, of course. You psych them out.
So again, the aggressive push. So there's a lot of vehicle hulls that can push forward. Toughness 10, 2-up saves. All got flamers, so the entire board is hello, welcome to Overwatch City. And Typhus is there also to drop in solo and deal some mortal wounds. So this is kind of just made to bully anything that's melee or brawly close range, but especially Custodes.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to turn this one over to the Dan pair. How are we feeling about this list, gents?
I hate it in short. But I think that with the way the meta is shaping up at the minute, obviously, like World Eaters are still very much an army of if we go first and you're not prepared for what we can do, I think it will still catch a lot of armies out, and Aiden is not going to be one of those people that gets caught out for sure. Custodes again, like as we've just watched a little about those. I think that it's still got a decent amount of toolbox stuff in there that you can respond and like play to a changing game state, which obviously like you need. So I think it just covers all corners, but is also just extremely deadly into the current meta, which is leaning to melee heavy.
Yeah.
So yeah, can't really pick a fault with it. I mean, apart from the fact obviously it's the wrong god, but we need to, yeah.
I think there's a lot of tricks to it as well. I think like your Lord, doesn't he like if he can see something, that Lord, I can't pronounce it. He can give like +1 to hit. Is that right? Or
yeah, so he gives the plague blast weapons +1 to hit and ignores cover, so the PBCs can hit out of 3 indirect. But to be honest, I've been using them more like main battle tanks rather than artillery. So often they're hitting on 2s because of direct line of sight and ignores cover, which is still really, really good. But yeah, so they can do that as well.
Do you find using rapid ingress at all in your Death Shroud? Do you keep them on the board or do you put them in the sky?
Death Shroud always going with Deep Strike, and weirdly, rapid ingress has been used in alternate ways. So one thing I've been doing is having them actually drop back, like say the players come out to charge a unit, I'll actually rapid ingress behind my own unit just to sit there and be like, I'm going to overwatch you when you declare this charge. Whereas normally it'd be like I'd rapid ingress to make a move and charge myself, which is kind of interesting to sort of do it differently. But yeah, against like anything that's sort of shoot, it's still 6 Death Shroud plus a Lord rapid ingress in, still like really scary. Not as good as 8-bound drop it in, because you drop in then move like 14, I move 4. bit different. But at least again, I at least have the flamers to like sort of control the area around.
Are so scary.
Yeah, that's not what you want to mess with.
Anti-infantry for 2+, and you've got so much of it. It's a nightmare.
I love the 2 guys hanging out at the top of the Rhino, though, just being like, we're bringing the party to you from inside the bus. It's just like, it's so scary. There has been a question in chat as to how would the World Leaders play or deploy against this list? I think it would, if it was me, it would be like a weird like cat and mouse game if I was playing against Aiden with this list, where I would be trying to do the same stuff that he would be trying to do in deployment and first turn pushes, where it's just like, scout some dudes on, pull those objectives and then fade behind the wall and just play a game of like which one of us is going to break first. But I think the key here
that's where
yeah, sorry, go on, Dan.
No, I was just going to say that's where having like a second unit of jackals in for me would be good for that, because there's a lot of, like you say, kind of like posing behind walls or just setting up and trying to bait the other person out, having that extra unit.
I think having the spawn like in your list and all 3 of our lists in the end is like really useful here for just like putting that 65-point unit on the objective and saying, all right, what are you going to put there? And I mean, like you obviously they will have to put something there eventually, which is helpful. But all the flamers are really the problem. It's like the Overwatch fear, and then obviously they have the guy for Fight First as well. All the while, your 8-bound are probably being pounded by indirect. So I think I would definitely be leaving the Exalted off the board. That's for sure. And then my regular 8-bounds, I don't know. I think it's sort of annoying because it's kind of like meat grinder time for them, where it's probably just like run at them, put up fight on death, and say like, all right, I'm gonna give this unit up, but hopefully they like take some skulls out with them. But I think it's like I've actually like flipped after the last video I did with Aiden, because I was like pretty. Oh, Custodes are the worst matchup now. I don't think that's really true anymore. I actually think Death Guard are like the worst matchup for World Leaders. And I was like recording an interview with Mike P from Warhammer yesterday, and he kind of said the same thing. So like I think a list like this that is built to like kick the crap out of Custodes also kicks the crap out of World Leaders really bad. So it's actually quite a difficult one for us to play into. And I think an aggressive World Leaders player, someone who's like, you know, straining at the leash, Aiden's just going to take them apart in my mind with this kind of a list.
Bit by bit, yeah. Through like I say, through my majority of my practice has been Death Guard, so being able to witness some of this stuff has been tough. Like, you know, just to try and eke the win out. Even the cultists in Aiden's list have some tricks with stratagems that they can do, which can assist with like the indirect and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
Boiled Blight plays.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you've rekindled some fear in Dan there.
Touch the nerve for sure.
I think my list, which we'll get onto a little bit, does have a little bit of an advantage over like a typical round list in this, because I have a lovely little 20 bomb of jackals that I can just like send up with the Foot Demon Prince. And as soon as you start shooting into them, I'll just say, all right, go to ground. Now they all have a 4-up invuln and a 5-up feel no pain.
That's actually annoying.
Which is like pretty annoying to actually deal with. The only problem is you can't do that in combat. So as soon as they get charged, they're like, oh no. But again, at the same time, if I'm baiting in a charge with 20 jackals, I'm pretty okay with that. But I think Ron lists really struggle to decide where they want to put Ron into this army specifically. I think they have a hard time kind of like picking the correct target here.
One points back when it's screened out and stuff like that, you've got like the Nurglings probably in the way, cultists in the way, or even just like PBCs. You know, if you are pushing out with them, it's normally he might hit one thing or a couple of like cheap things, but if you don't roll your blessing dice, then you're probably not making your points back against the Death Guard, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I'd say though is I think this is not a meta Death Guard list in general. Like it's got a lot of staples, but the second list that we've got, Dara, I actually think you have more game into.
Yeah, let's take a look at list number 2 and help Aiden make a decision. So this is Noptarian, however you want to call it. Why don't you talk us through this one?
So this is more your standard meta list, which kind of makes me not want to take it because I want to be a little special snowflake. But it's got obviously
I love it.
it's got you win with the list everyone else is winning with. Everyone's just like, oh, that's cool. You win with the off meta list, you're the crazy guy.
Absolutely, 100%. We had 3 Mauler Fiends and 2 Forge Fiends win or come second in the GT, and everyone thinks that person is now God. So
so here we got Morty, Typhus. So this got the big man himself. So you've got the aura of ignore modifiers and the reroll ones to wound. You've still got Typhus there to drop some mortal wounds. You've got Biological Putrefier and a Foul Blight Spawn. You've got a 10-man Plague Marine Brick still for the fights first. But as you've noticed, there's a lot less like troop presence, so a lot less objective toolboxy play. But what it does have is a lot more shooting and the ability to sort of take away people's answers. So you've got the 2 Predator Disruptors, which are really good at the moment. We can give -1 save contagion, which is going to make them hit even harder. Mortarians ignoring stuff like Armor Contempt, ignoring smoke launchers, all that kind of stuff. So these things can really hurt. Still got a 6 Death Shard Brick in there. I think there's a lot of virulence as well. Probably forgot to put it in there. But he's giving them the reroll, still spotting for the 2 PBCs. There's still 2 bloat drones, so to push out with the flamers, be annoying, threaten Overwatch, sort of initiate trades again, because they're only 90 points, which I think is absurd for a bloat drone.
So
like
good that
90
so
points.
crazy,
It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
So flying rhino with flamers. Literally what it is.
And an invuln.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's fair. And you got 2 PBCs, which are going to be obviously ignoring any indirect penalties from Mortarian. So this is kind of like a bit of a castle. So you have not like a castle, like it's basically Mortarion takes the two predators and the two playbus calls for a walk. Um, and most things that are in line of sight usually get picked up because they just hit really hard when you're ignoring all modifiers, rerolling ones to wound. You've got units out there to spread the -1 save, and then you can do stuff like Boil Blight, so you're hitting on twos with indirect with the mortars at -2 to your save with no cover. So there's all these little things you can do. But one thing this list does have, and it's the list, it's I think the match I lost against was basically my opponent got first turn with a Black Templars, Impulsor, and Gladiator Reaper spam. And he kind of just put stuff in my face because it's not actually like you can kill stuff. So like say all the Sword Brethren come out, you can kill them. But then the problem is like you can't kill the Reapers at the same time. And you don't have enough control or enough screening stuff to stop stuff getting in. And when someone gets into like the Predators are still very squishy. Like like if you get an 8-bound unit into those Predators gone. PBC with the Invuln and the 2-up save base,
it's a different game.
Yeah, and again, I've got the Blade Caster, so if I see you going for a charge on them, I can keep a Blade Caster 18 inches of the PBC. He can put -1 to wound on you, and now now you're like, oh great. So even if I pop the +1, I'm going to get double -1 again. So it also -1 to wound on like carnivores because I play against war dogs, and them going from wounding like bloat drones on 3s to 4s is very unreliable.
Yeah,
like I had one bloat drone die still, and the other one didn't take a single wound. I was like, okay, cool. But this one is like this one's sort of tested and proven. It went 5-0. Last round was a draw again against Black Templars, that build. So it's still a weakness, and Black Templars are probably one of the more popular Marine chapters at the moment.
Yeah.
Now this can do better against like some vehicles than the other list because it has the long range firepower to reach out, but it definitely has like less board presence because it's less expendable units. And what I'd also say is this one is a lot worse at playing tactical.
Yeah, let's discuss this one because I am of the opinion that the first list, the How to Rust Gold, is like much superior to this one. I think this one has a lot of failure points, which obviously like you're a good player, Aiden, so that's fair enough. You'll be able to mitigate those failure points, but like someone who's maybe less good at the game is probably going to have a tougher time against this. And there's just something about the surety of having so many torrent weapons that are anti-infantry that just says to me like, okay, cool, why would you not take this all the time? Because it's just very reliable.
Yeah, I think for me, the other thing that I'm looking at these two lists is we've obviously got Necrons that are quite the boogeyman at the minute, and they can have like a shooting hypercrypt, or they can have something that's more kind of like a mix of both. And I feel like the first list would do far better even if you're against a shooty variant of hypercrypt. You know, at the end of the day, race classes infantry, right, or camera classes infantry for
the character that joins.
Yeah. So just for that alone, considering you're going to be coming up against a lot of Necrons that is very Silver Tide like, I feel like the first list has a better matchup into a wider variety of lists that you're going to see in the meta, and it will also, you know, just kind of make Custodians players have a horrible time.
It's really nice to make Custodians players cry.
There's a lot of points in the two, like Mortarion and the Death Shroud brick as well, isn't there? So you got a lot of points.
Yeah, like just those two alone is like near like 700 points.
Yeah.
Which is okay if they do work, but a lot of the problem is Mortarion, especially like with Angron as a Primarch, Angron, unless you position him on the line in the open like an idiot, which I hopefully none of you guys do. He usually at least reaches combat once because of his sheer speed, so you get some value back. And Angron has the stats to and the characteristics to basically guarantee he kills the thing he charges. And now Mortarion, 5 attacks for a Primarch.
It's such a terrible vibe.
Yeah, Mortarion's rough.
Yeah, and the problem is Mortarion having been unreliable, and this is what lost me I went 4-1 at the last event I went to, and it was because of Mortarion, because Mortarion did a heroic intervention into Helbrecht and 5 Sword Brethren, which is like the perfect target. I'm AP4, they have no invulnerable, I'm flat 4 damage, they've only got 3 wounds each. All I had to do was kill 3 Sword Brethren, and then I would consolidate onto, because it was a heroic intervention, then I could consolidate onto a point. It was Sites of Power. I would then hold it and then empower it in my turn, and then I could shoot Helbrecht and the 1 Sword Brethren to death. Easy peasy, yeah? what happened is I rolled 3 1s to hit, which
Rough.
meant that fail state happened, and then I got locked in combat, and then Hellbreak slapped me for like 10 mortal wounds, which is great. And that's
Oh,
a
no.
325 point model. Being able to whiff like that totally screwed up everything. Didn't get to consolidate, didn't get on the point. All these failure points happened because of him. And another problem Mortarion has is because Angon doesn't have this effect as much. Angon has a nice aura of reroll all hits, right?
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Yes.
which is nice, but when you have an aura like Mortarion's, which is reroll wound rolls of 1 and ignore all modifiers, you feel like you have a ball and chain around your like leg to that guy. You which really restricts it, especially I'm not a very good vehicle car park player. I personally find it kind of boring, I won't
Says
lie.
the guy running the vehicle car park.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, and just sort of being trapped with that, you can get outmaneuvered quite easily. So I feel like against World Eaters with your speed, especially, you can probably dodge the Predator Destructors. Okay, the indirect's probably going to hurt. There's not much you can do about that. Indirect's a bit bull. But I reckon you could against that second list. You guys could probably reach a staging point and then all in. And even if you ignore Morty, you just go for the Predators and maybe like a PVC. Once you've picked up that, you can kind of just run away from Morty.
Yeah, I think the second list is a much more favorable list for World Leaders to play into, to be honest.
Yeah.
And probably to a point, Custodes as well. Predators are pretty spicy into Custodes in general. But yeah, if I'm the World Leaders player looking into list number 2, I'm a much happier person, to be honest.
Having played it as a World Eater player, you can see, like especially on the UKTC terrain, that you can struggle to move around. There's getting into the center with certain routes is really tough for the predators, especially. You know, it's
Yeah.
move around. So like you say, you can potentially, you might get ignored line of sight shot from the PVCs, but you could move around the predators a lot easier in that one. And like you say, Morty as well has a lot of points in like babysitting your vehicles.
And the Death Shroud really have to put in some solid work in this list, I think. Whereas in the other one, they're almost like a nice, like, oh, it's good that they're here too. But I feel like in this list, the Death Shroud are like, we have to do something really important, and if we fuck it up, we probably lose the game because of it, kind of a vibe.
Yeah.
You know, I just also get the vibe, like from having spoken to you a little bit, that you would just play the first list better, you know, in terms of like how I think that you would like to engage with the game. I just think you would be better playing the first list.
You're more like when we've discussed it in our chats, you've been far more hyped about the first list than the second one. And even though we're coming at this entire thing from a competitive standpoint, right? We all know that you will always do better with a less competitive list that you enjoy playing, as opposed to one that you're kind of like it's more meta, but you've maybe not got as much reps in, or you just aren't feeling it. It's that's one of the core principles of playing competitive. Like net listing doesn't always like win you games. So if you're more hyped about the first list, which it sounds like you are, then
I am definitely more excited. There's just some comedy to telling a custode player he moves 2 and he's -4 to charge. It's just funny.
There's also like the fear factor of like if you run that first list and submit it as how to rust gold, and a custodes player pairs you and they see that, they're walking up to the table sweating already, which is definitely a good vibe. But I think that other list has better mobility in general. It can play tactical, which is always really good because you get that extra CP kind of vibe going on. This one I think can also play tactical, but probably prefers fixed a lot of the time, I feel. I don't know, how do you think about that one?
I agree. The problem that I have with it is that it's only got the 1 unit of Nurglings, which is sometimes rough because you can only play homers, so because the problem is with fixed is homers is easy. Everyone can do homers. But unless your opponent gives you something else, you kind of like it's like engage or cleanse, and it doesn't have the units to cleanse because I can't be using predators or Morty to cleanse. I need those units putting in work. And like you said with the Death Shroud, I can't have 300 points Death Shroud drop down and be like, I'm gonna cleanse. So you've got to do something, guys.
Yeah.
So it even kind of struggles in that sense because I mean I came to play that's the list I sort of took to, like I said, 4-1. But even the event before that was playing the original list with no Morty, which was like 30 Plague Marines, triple Rhinos, free PBC, so more akin to the one, the How to Rust Gold one. And you have so many like 5-mans and stuff, like getting stuff like cleanse, investigate signals. It's not really a problem. You're like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Whereas when I played that 4-on-1 one, I was like, every game I was like, God, I hope you give up, bring it down, or God, I hope you give up, assassinate.
And I hate that.
Aiden, when you went
like...
4-on-1, did you? Sorry, Dara.
No, go
was
on, Dan,
that
go on.
because terrain for me, I know a half fan about it, but I find it fascinating because you say about like the meta net list and stuff like that. They can really like differentiate and be different to the tournament and like the terrain. So when you went 4-on-1 with that, the second list you said,
Yeah,
was that on like UKTC or was
that was Glasshammer, which is a
Right.
much more exposed center of the board because they use a lot of forests in the middle, whereas UKTC it's more, there's still long firing lanes, but it's a lot narrower. So that's also something I've been debating. I'll be like,
I feel
because-
like UKTC, you can play a really closed-in game if you choose to, So like if I was playing into that second list, I would just choose like I'm gonna live in some buildings. You're gonna have a really hard time having those predators actually doing something. I will let you shoot the things that I want them to be shooting, like 20 jackals or whatever. I don't care. So yeah, I don't know. I think with UKTC in mind, that second list or the first list has much higher scoring potential, and especially with the fact that there's so much 6 objective missions in UKTC right now.
Yeah, that's probably weird, isn't it?
The second list suffers for that, whereas the first list has so much redundancy that you can just kind of be like, cool, I don't mind if it's 6 objectives, that's fine, I can still play that kind of vibe going on. So to me, I would say it's the second one, or sorry, the first one. And also just the fact that like, there's like 1 million Custodes players that show up to UKTC events. So like you're almost guaranteed to play it.
I just want to make them cry because it's just funny. What's even better is I think I figured out that if I could drop a sort of cultists, so I go down to 1 squad instead of 2, take a unit of Nurglings instead, and that 10 points with the extra points I had already can buy me an enhancement that gives the squad -2 to be charged, because -6 to charge is even funnier than -4 to charge.
I hate it, but I love it.
I'll keep the colours though, but it does sound funny.
Find out.
All right, I think we'll lock in that first list then, because I feel like more excited to play it, because again, I think I'm like you, Dara. I think there's winning with an army, and then there's like winning my way with an army.
Winning in style, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we seem to have solved that problem. So why don't we roll straight on into Dan's list next? So I'll hop that one up on the screen. Dan, you didn't give me a name for this list, so I just called it 8-bound Ascension because you took all the 8-bound under the sun. So that's where we are with it. Why don't you run us through this one?
Yeah, sure. I think as with a lot of World Eaters lists, unless you're Dara, who has to do something different, it's not going to be much of what you've not already seen. So it's Angron, you live in, Lord Invocatus, he's there to scout stuff out. Master of Executions with the Berserker Glaive, 10 Jackals, 10 Comp Berserkers, 3 8-bound, 3 8-bound, 6 Exalted, then a squad of 3 Exalted, 2 Spawn, another 2 Spawn, and then finally a Rhino. What I would say with this list that kind of differs from, or not differs, but I think is that the most important is that I've tried to put redundancy in it where I think it's like needed. For Berserkers, as I was saying about Dan's list before, I'd love to have just Khorne, and if it was just 5 Berserkers or something like that, like that to me would really finish the list off. Just like that small extra bit, but without that, I was looking for other sources of 3 damage, which obviously is the regular 8-bound. So there's 2 squads of those in there, because obviously we're going to be coming up against Custodes and things like that. And also, I don't like putting 100. I don't like giving away a 145-point unit, but it's one of the only units that we've got without a character in it that's going to make a big enough dent into other things that are coming up in the meta. So we've seen a lot of Space Marines, we've seen a lot of Black Templars. So I feel like the 8-bound, and also as one of the only sources of rerolls that we have, I just feel like it's good to either have them go at one flank and say, hey, I'm going to be supporting this side, or you put them with the rest of your main force and you're just giving your heavy hitters even more of a chance to chew through those things they need to chew through. The 6 Exalted 8-bound is just like having another Angron, but you can go through buildings, essentially. Like, it's a lot of damage, very tough to shift. If you give them the 5-up, feel no pain. yeah, they're just obnoxious. And then the 2x2 spawn, obviously, they're, as I kind of mentioned before, they're going around, they're scoring investigate signals, they're putting like the key thing is that they're able to go out into like no man's land and just force those interactions. Like in the game that I played against Templars last weekend, like I got first card I drew was was it secure no man's land, or yeah, it's either way. It was like right straight onto the central objective you go, deal with it. And it especially when you're in sort of melee armies, like they hate going, oh god, now I've got to be the one that has to go out and deal with something, right? So yeah, there's nothing really that's like any crazy tech. There's no 3 Mauler Fiends, 3 Forge Fiends, or there's no like 7 Moes in there or anything like that. It is just a very honest. It's just a very honest, angry World Eaters list, to be honest with you.
I like it. I think it's like it has a nice amount of like toolbox units, which I think is quite important. How are you guys feeling about this one?
I think if this is your first like event you're going to, your first Pro 1, it's a good list to take because I guarantee you'll probably get a win with this list.
Yeah, you'll have fun with it.
You'll have fun with it, and I guarantee you, even if you go like, I'm not gonna say you are, let's say you go like 4 losses, that poor soul that's only 0-5 game is about to get ran down.
It's gonna be a guard player, you know it. Like it's gonna be a guard player.
And as well, if you do like put your spawn in, like your roll in that game as well, your roll like a 5 or a 6 each D6, and like they've got 3 on the charge, like 15, 16 attacks. But even 18 because we get 3 on the charge. You'd be like, oh, these spawn are insane. That's happening with me. My practice games, but I know when I go to the Manchester GT, I'll probably roll 1 or 2 on the D6.
I mean, I love the amount of toolbox it has, though. Like, you've got, like, the 2x2 spawn, you've got the jackals, like, so many units that can just do bits, and are, because I have, like, such, like, fear into MSU Eldar, just, like, well, it's, like, fear and hatred, right? But, like, those units are perfect for chasing them down, and just solving that problem, whereas, like, a real meaty World Eaters list that goes hard on the hammer units wouldn't really have the option to do that. So I think I agree with Aiden and Dan. Like, you will get a minimum of 1 win with this list. I think it's all but guaranteed.
You underestimate my ability to disappoint you all.
One thing I think it's to be honest, I think it has actually quite a good like few match. So I was talking before about if you come across the list, the pairing I fear the most is like the Dark Angels Iron Storm, which to be honest I don't have much answers for as Death Guard. Long range anti tank isn't my thing, so it's whatever. But as you, for example, you come across that with your list especially, I talked before about catapulting Angron in there. You've got that other huge brick of Exotic 8-bound.
Yeah.
If you get first and you launch both of them into their lines, they're gonna have that. Especially if you pick up, like I said, if I'm gonna pick up 2 vehicles, you get a lucky charge and double tap. And if the Exotic 8-bound can pick up another one and even like tag someone else, that can be a lot of game over. Like again, if you're against like Tau players again, and he has like a big crisis brick and he puts it in reserves, you just run him down. Like you don't give that guy a chance. You don't get him to give him to wait till turn 2. Just like I'm gonna be in your face, locked in combat, deal with it. And I think like if people don't have tools to play against that, it can honestly be kind of horrific. To be honest, I'm not gonna lie. I think you're the problem, Dan. I think you're the reason World Eaters got nerfed in the first place.
I'm right here
just piloting that negative play experience across the table.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't Dara that just dumpstered Custodians on stream. It was wholly my fault.
Yeah, well, listen, they're still nursing that wound, but I'll make sure to reopen it this weekend.
I think finally, maybe the one thing I would say, like, kind of going back to what everyone said there. I think if you want to get into World Eaters, and this might sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but I think this is probably like the safest thing to try because of the fact that I've designed it very much in a way that I'm not new to playing the game, but I am new to tournaments. I'm thinking, well, if I go to a tournament, I'm probably not playing fixed. Like, what do I need to be able to do to for an all comers list? And I'm going, okay, well, I need those actionable units. Like I need one big hammer that isn't Angron, because what happens if Angron whiffs or whatever. So I feel like it's a nice safe thing that you can look at and go, right, there's something for every decision I need to make here. Now, I'm going to play it horribly, but there is something to be made. Like, decisions can be made. They might be bad decisions, but you still have decisions to make.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's a list that can really help you make the decisions, though,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it has a lot of toolbox and it's still got a lot of really potent hammers. So I think it's pretty solid.
It's also just it's a world eaters list. It is.
really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
If you were to
Yeah.
be like, I wanna play like world eaters like probably would in the fluff. Like it's just a list that's gonna be fun regardless. You are gonna go
Yeah.
like you have the ability to play like staging and mid board, but this
Yeah.
list also has the ability to just go absolutely mental and just run at
Go
someone.
off, right?
And yeah, exactly. And I think that's especially when it's your first event, like having fun with your games is going to be way more important
Yeah,
than
you don't
worrying
want to
about like you winning.
overcomplicate it, right? You
And
just want to like
enjoying
have a
your
good
losses
time.
as well. Yeah, like
Yeah.
learning so much from your losses
Yeah.
is crucial. And
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a huge thing as well, Dan. Like, it's not just about like my list. This goes for like anyone in general. I think a lot of people, especially a lot of competitive people, are people that are like a bit nervous about a competitive environment or they're not sure. Like, I will always, and me and Aiden have had these conversations countless times after our games where it's like, okay, you shake hands, good game. What could have gone differently? What could I have done better? And like those moments are so quintessential to becoming a better player.
Yeah, when you
It's
get the
like
other
you-
side of the table perspective
Yeah,
of like, this
yeah.
is the moment that I realized that you had made a mistake, and you may not
Yeah.
have realized yourself that you had actually made that mistake, right? It's just like such an important aspect of playing in a tournament is like having that pre-game or post-game chat and saying like, all right, let's break this down over a beer or something like that,
Yeah.
and say like, all right, where did things go wrong?
I suppose we can touch on that a bit more after we've seen your list, Dara. The thing that we've been all waiting for.
Already. We've built up to this.
I mean,
one.
Joe in chat wants to see a 5-0
5-0
Nongron, so I'm
Nongron.
hoping we're not going to see an Amber in this list, Dara. No pressure, right? No
All
pressure.
right, I'm gonna put up my list, and nobody be super mean to me. This list is called the Brazen Zealots. There's a whole homebrew lore thing, but we won't get too deeply into that. It starts off with a demon prince on foot with the Helm of Brazen Ire. We've got Invocatus, Khorne, and Mo with the Berserker Glaive in here. So 3 classics, and then the demon prince on foot, who is pretty obnoxious, I think. Especially when he halves all damage. Then we have 10 Zerks and 5 Zerks. Who attaches to who depends entirely on the matchup, so that can flip around a lot, which is nice. And then we have 10 Jackals and 20 Jackals. I love my 20-man Jackal brick with the Demon Prince because you can do go to ground on them and still get the 4-up invuln, which is a good time. And then we have a unit of Spawn, a Rhino, 3-man 8-bound units for baiting out Custodes, and finally a 6-man Exalted Hammer brick. It is a pretty weird list, I think. I'm happy enough to kind of say that, but I'm really happy with where it is right now. It's been a bit of a work in progress between myself and Brian in the Discord and a few other folks as well. We've kind of gone with a couple of different iterations, but I think with where the meta is right now, this list can play well into MSU Eldar, which is nice. It can play well into Custodes. I think it can do okay into Necrons, and it folds like a piece of paper in the rain to deck guard, but here we are. What do you guys think of this one?
I'd go against what you said. I don't think this falls as hard as you think.
No?
I would put more money on this one, mainly because I feel like you have the ability to actually like trade pieces without losing too much. Again, the reason I like the Spawn and the other 2 guys lists gives you something to put out that's like cheap enough to sort of like initiate an engagement. But without Angron in there, because again, Angron's really good, gets a trade, but if he dies, you don't get the points back. I feel like at the moment, I would fear more go wide rather than go, is it tall? They call it.
Go wide and go tall, yeah.
Because again, especially if you go tall, it's quite nice for me because I'm just going like, I'm going to put all my flamers into the unit. Like when you go like multiple like 3-mans, like and then you got Jackals as well, which can like risk because even just like being tied up by Jackals, feel no pain's annoying. Like
it
really, really
is.
spiky. So having like a 5-up, because do they get the 5 invulnerable? Is it just shooting or is it melee as well?
It's melee as well, yeah.
Okay, so 5-up is actually really spikeable and really annoying. And like all you have to do is like and again, with the Jackal squads you've got, and you're obviously playing yours probably more aggressively.
Yeah,
You have the ability
pretty
to
much
like
the
get
20 man
around.
scouts in like almost every single game, right?
Mm.
Because
So you have the ability to do like the fight first plays where like you tag as many models, because it's quite easy to do against custodians because you've only got to tag like 4 models.
Mm.
10-man plague run, you got to try and tag like all the heavy plague weapons, which is like 5 models, plus then you don't want to like pile in and all that stuff. So having the jackals to do that's really nice. I don't think it falls as bad as you think. But I think it's go wide. It shows the difference like
Yeah.
of non-Gron to Angron. Because how many points is Angron? Because you seem like you have a lot more in your list.
he's
415.
415, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
so expensive.
Right, that is quite a bit. And it's the same when I build a list about Mortarion. Like you just feel like you have so much like width on your list and the ability to play wide. And also, I feel like it's going to be more forgiving on mistakes and punishments. I feel like if you make a mistake in the 8-bound, but it's called. I'm calling your list. I'm going to give you Octophobia. That's your new list name, Dan.
I like it.
Okay, nice.
Excellent.
I actually just googled that. Then I was like, "What's the fear of 8?" I was like, "Oh, it's Octophobia." How creative.
Okay, I'll change it. I like that.
I
But like
it.
if Dan or Dan misplay like Angron or like one of the large units of 8-bound, they lose that. It's a big thing. Whereas you still have like a lot of assets to still play around with.
Yeah, like my most expensive unit is what 320, 330 points in the 6-man exalted brick, which is possible to misplay, but is forgiving in itself because of the ability to when it's next to the demon prince, it's got a 4-up invuln, 5-up shrug. It's actually just like
that combo is gross, by the way.
It is very much a U list as well, Dara, with regards to like wave after wave. You can put that, like you say, that 20 brick out, then you've got your second and your third ready to go. I feel like whenever
because the berserkers usually come in that later wave as well, when it's kind of like cleanup duty. The opponent generally is feeling like pretty good in terms of like, oh yeah, I managed to kill all the 8-bound, I'm okay now. And then Khorne and 10 boys hop out and they just mow through whatever's left. So it's really good times. It's particularly good into custodes because you can just turn all the 8-bound units into custodes with this, with the 4-up invuln and 5-up shrug, or 6-up shrug in the case of the 8-bound. And like it's really good for you can just send some 3-man units into the wardens pretty early on to bait out the feel no pain. One thing that I really like is having the 3 8-bound units means you can have one that's just an aura giver, and the other 2 can just go and do stuff. And it also gives.
I think one of the tech pieces, we've already touched on it. Like the demon prince with the helm for me, like I've undenied, and like there's a lot of world eaters players in the Discord that also run that with Angron, because that 6-man exalted with the demon prince and Angron on the list is like so awful. But not having Angron and having all those points to like do whatever else with it's just like, oh, there's so much more I have to worry about in this list. And I think that the demon prince with helm is phenomenal. Plus, yes, okay, we all know that he's not easy to maneuver necessarily, but you've repped this so many times on so many different missions, like where your moving angles and lanes are. So
yeah, I know
a lot more.
Walk him around, but
so you know to walk him around, and I think that's the key for this list is once you know how to maneuver the demon prince with helm. If you do give your opponent some sight lines, you know about it, and it's always going to be, for the most part, favorable ones. And trying to take him down is it's so obnoxious.
So what is it that enhancement does?
Halves all damage.
Dara, I've changed my mind. I'm taking the Mortarion list. I ain't coming across that bullshit.
Yeah, it's so obviously his natural enemies are the other 2 Primarchs, Magnus and Mortarion, because Magnus can just double Doom Bolt him into the sun, and Mortarion can say never mind. Trajan can also do it, I guess, but yeah. So
Trajan's got to be up close though, which is if you're letting him charge the Demon Prince, that's no offense, that's probably on you.
Probably on me, 100%. Joey wants to know why no favorite of Khorne in this list. So this list wants to play a much closer board state compared to the other World Leader lists. It doesn't want to go super wide. Even though it is going wide by extent, but like the game that it plays is very kind of clustered around the middle objectives, and you set up an area to play out of. You don't want favorite of Khorne here because you don't really need advance and charge. I have almost never used advance and charge as my blessing, and since that's the thing that you kind of want favorite of Khorne for, I just don't really need it in this list. And if I was to take it, it means that either Mo or the Demon Prince lose their enhancement, which is just so much better the way I have it here.
Can I just touch on that?
Yeah, of course.
The enhancement for the Demon Prince, like when you tag that with Khorne Cares Not, like he's very durable, extremely durable. So that's like -1 damage in combat. He's already halving damage.
Yeah, and then you consider the feel no pain and the fact that he's T10. He just doesn't die. I had a practice game against Custodes. It's crazy, yeah. Like I just like had loads of Custodes go into him, and he's just like, yeah, cool, no problem. This is fine. I'll throw up the -1 damage. He's having minusing, and then feel no pain. It's like, yeah, you're gonna take maybe 2 or 3 wounds.
Ignoring the fact that it's not like he doesn't slap the ass off things in combat either. Like he's for what he is. Like he's a tough body, devastating wounds. He's got 7 attacks on the charge. Like it's not like he's a slouch either.
Yeah.
So you certainly, I think that's the key thing to the Demon Prince is like, yes, he's a linchpin, but you can't ignore him.
Yeah.
Like you can't let him and a squad of 6 exalted 8-bound just go where they please. But you also don't want to charge him because you're going to get stuck in combat with the unit he's defending. You're also not going to kill him because he's T10 and all these defensives. Plus the fact that if he does turn around and look at you and go, you're getting on my nerves, he will just swat you out of combat, even if it's not in one turn, but he will do it over multiple turns. So
he's a brilliant guy for the epic challenge into Custodes as well, because he will just lob their heads off. But yeah, he's fun. He is awkward to maneuver. Like I've had plenty of games where he just doesn't make combat at all, and he's just like a buffing castle to play the army around, which is completely fine. But yeah, it's a fun list. It's kind of like an evolution of where my lists have gone since the LGT, which was the last time I took Angron. It's definitely.
I think even before Angron, like even in 9th edition, you like I'm quite jealous that you have all the world eating models, because I've always got like big stupid model.
Yeah.
And like I've got a lot of Forge World in my cupboard for world eaters that I just can't use anymore. So I'm like kind of playing catch up on getting like this berserk.
Oh, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. But yeah, I just like happen to have like a million berserkers as well, which is useful.
Yeah.
But
very useful.
it's a fun one. I mean, the thing is, it is like still pretty prone to player mistakes, I would say. And like when I've made mistakes with this list, I've really felt it. You know, it's just like, oh wow, that was super punishing. So yeah,
I think this list also though opens up opponent to mistakes because it's very different.
Yeah,
it's like defensive world eaters, and a lot of people aren't going to know how to play against that because they're just going to expect the usual world eater thing, and then suddenly, like you said, suddenly you are as tough as like Custodes, if not even like potentially even tougher, which is a little insane, to be honest.
I think it's really a sleeper, but it has to suit your playstyle. And as Dan said earlier, I've always like played that slower game progression of like multiple waves, and as you rightly point out, it's quite defensive. It likes to kind of set up somewhere and bring someone in. Not to say I won't go for turn 1 charges if the opportunity presents itself, but you know, when we're talking about playing against people who are actually like deploying correctly and you know, reasonable players. Yeah, it's it can play an interesting game, and I just really don't like using centerpiece models like Angron because I'm like, holy crap, this is a whole bunch of points tied up in one unit. If I misplay it, it's bad vibes, which I generally do. So yeah, it's kind of obvious to me to just not do that. But yeah, that's where
I'm the same. I'm not a centerpiece kind of person. Like same thing with Morty. Like he's always great, but I like him for the aura. Like you got this Demon Prince, you like him for the aura, not necessarily him doing something.
Yeah.
Difference is obviously like Morty's free 25 points, which is not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I'm not sitting and complaining. My Primarch's too expensive. He's stupidly cheap. But it's also one of those when I've built the entire thing around him, and he's as big as he is. He can hide a Demon Prince relatively easily. I've got a giant ass wingspan. Why can't he fold his wings like Angron?
Angron's silhouette is like so small. It's amazing.
I've got this moth who's like T-posing everywhere. Like it's like great. Cool.
His pose is very much like his Forge World model though. Like he's kind of like got his leg up on a tactical rock, you know, and hunch down a little bit.
He knows. He saw the terrain layout. He knew what was ahead of him.
They looked at the terrain rules for 10th edition. It was like, okay, it needs to be able to be obscured. What if we just shrink him down a little bit?
One thing I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned it a second ago, which is like you said, It's good against X, but if I come across something like Magnus or something, I get double doom bolted, etc. I think in a weird, like good but bad way, I feel like the game has so many viable factions right now. It is impossible to make a list that can deal with everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's both good and bad. Because like I'm dreading that Dark Angel Iron Storm list. Maybe I dodge it, maybe I don't. I feel like I could sit here, I could go back and forth over the list a million times, put in a Predator, put in some Lascans, make it worse than against someone else, and then I'm like, oh god, but what if them Wildies just run at me with, and I've only got like no screens or something. Like I think at a certain point when we're list building all these lists, all four of our lists, we just have to bite the bullet on some things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually spoke about this with Mike P yesterday, and it was really interesting because we kind of discussed that exact point that you can't actually just tech into everything right now because so many things are viable, which is really cool because obviously we're living in a meta where there's nothing that really can't win. You know, even AdMech, who are like the lowest of the low, are nowhere close to the lowest lows in 9th and 8th edition, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. And the kind of like product of that in my mind, while it does kind of like push towards a rock paper scissors meta, which is slightly true, but it also really like kind of brings out player skill as an important factor in my mind, because it comes down to like, have you repped against as many situations as you possibly can, and then are you able to like assess a situation that you maybe haven't prepared for, and can you like respond to that correctly? And a lot of the reason why I built this list was because people will see an Angron list and kind of know roughly how to play into it, whereas they might see my list and it's just going to be like, I actually just don't really know what to do here.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm very much currently in that early stage of, I have Angron, I'm going to put Angron on the table and I'm going to use him for like win or loss. But for me as a player, I think I much prefer just having those wider options. And I think your list, if I was going to change it, I being, you know, an 8-bound Joya, would probably just take
Average
some,
8-bound
yeah,
Joya.
I would just take some of those points, shift them around a bit, put a bit more into 8-bound. But if I was going to run something similar, I'd like Demon Prince, 6 Exalted, yeah. And I think it just, as everyone's kind of already said, it's just an echo chamber at this point, but I think it is able to respond to a lot more situations. And plus, this is kind of a bit of a side point. A lot of the codexes that GW have released so far, well, apart from Necrons maybe, aren't nearly as guilty of codex creep as we've seen in the past, I feel. I think they've actually done a really good job of keeping the armies in a relatively reasonable state. Like, yes,
sometimes too good. Dark
sometimes
Angels.
too, yeah.
Hey man,
but,
there's like 1,000 Tau tiers happening this weekend. So.
Yeah, true.
Oh,
But
it's not even that bad.
It's not even that bad.
You,
it's not.
You can't spam Crisis with Cyclic. Get over
it. I'm gonna clip that and just like
post it.
Let's make that into a meme.
So yeah, for your list, I feel like it has a lot of longevity, whereas maybe lists like mine and possibly Dan's, depending on how other codexes shape up, I feel like we'll hit that critical mass where something's going to come out and we'll just go, that's an Angron killer. Like, Angron is no longer on the table.
Yeah.
What do you do?
400 points.
Yeah. And so then me and Dan have to be in a situation where we go, right, we have to essentially relearn how to play a game with a completely different list.
Which is kind of like honestly, not in my mind. I don't know, maybe you guys disagree. I don't really think that's like such a bad thing because it keeps things fresh, you know?
No, yeah.
Yeah. I think honestly, I think it's good. Like, that's, the game should be changed up like that. And it shouldn't necessarily always be changed up in a way that, okay, the latest codex is released, it's now completely crushed the meta, now everyone just texts for that one army, as we've all said. But
it is nice like not having like heart palpitations every 2 months when I see there's like a codex coming out. You know?
So yeah, that's it. I think your list is like longevity, it like safe for world of use.
Well, I think they all have merit because like if someone misplays their deployment or turn 1, you guys can like properly body slam them, whereas I don't really have necessarily that ability.
Me and
pull
Dan
the
just
pin and send
me and Dan have a keyboard and it's just like W is like the majority
literally
of it. And we just hit that, off we go.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm pretty hyped for it though. If anybody is watching and like has any questions, I think now would be the time before we kind of start to close this one out, because we've gone through all the lists and all that good stuff. So fire some questions into chat if you have them. I think it's going to be really interesting though, guys. Like they're like even both Dans, you're both bringing like Angron lists, but they're quite different to each other, which is quite exciting. I personally prefer Dan Brooke's list because I like that it's gone that a little bit wider, and I hate putting all the eggs in the 8-man basket. Though I think for where you are coming into this event, I think it's like maybe like I think both of your lists suit you where you want to kind of achieve, because like you kind of need to build towards that as well. And then Aiden, it's got to be Rust and Gold, like that list.
Yeah, Rust and Gold,
super cool.
100%.
As
I'll
Rust
just
and
say
Gold,
it's a
as long as you
grief
don't play me, like I'll be fine with that otherwise.
Can I just ask you guys how because this, I don't know if anyone in chat even knows this, but has the venue change affected either of you? Any of you?
Slightly, yeah.
Because for me, as a South Manc, it's even easier for me. But I appreciate, especially Dara coming over. It might be a bit of a pain in the backside.
Yeah, well, I think me and Jack. So for anyone who doesn't know, there was like a venue switch because the original venue basically cancelled on the UKTC guys, which is super lousy. But here we are. It's been fine for me because we're just going to Uber from the hotel. Like I was looking at a 3-minute walk for the original venue, which was like peak Warhammer, means I could get like smashed the night before and just like fall into the event.
I was on trams and big walks. I was like not looking forward to it, and then when you changed it, it's like, oh, brilliant. Motorway, parking, love it.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it'll be okay. It's like it's super inconvenient. I imagine for UKTC it must have been a nightmare. Like I just feel super bad for them.
I would hate to be like. So for me, it's actually much closer to me. So I'm kind of on the like the west side of Manchester, so it's like a hop on the train for me. So not a problem at all. Aiden wasn't happy there because Aiden's literally the opposite side of Manchester to me.
I was like, great.
When you're coming over from Ireland, an extra like 20 minutes in the morning doesn't seem like that much.
That's true. Yeah. No, I sorted it. I got I'm getting a lift in with the head judge, so definitely nothing suspicious going on there.
Nothing like a bit of match fixing in round 1.
Hi, Dara.
Can you imagine? I would fold on the table. Just like, what if I give you Jack instead? Because Jack's coming as well. He wasn't able to join us tonight. If you take the other half of the red path, is that acceptable?
Is Jack running his usual jank where it's just like a Night Ravager and a KLR?
I've talked him off the cliff, I think.
Right, he's
I'm also not sure. I wrote him a list and I was kind of like, just play this, please. And I think he's going to, but I can't confirm for sure that he is.
I'll still never forget. I think it was like the end of last edition where Jack was doing his like this week in World Eaters, where he's going through a list, and you just get it's like 20 minutes of Jack going, now I'm gonna go through Dara's list.
He hated that. I mean, anytime that I did like anyway reasonable.
Lists get released tomorrow, is it?
List submission is tomorrow. I think they'll be released on Monday. I'm guessing.
Yeah. Dylan Kuhn does have a question. Is Aiden going all in and bringing belchers on the Marines?
So not belchers. I've took plague spewers, sorry, which are the better ones. I had to be semi-sensible. So if I went like whole hog crazy wild, I think the list can get 42 anti-infantry flamers. But unfortunately, I actually need some stuff like melter guns because I see this all the time. It's one of the biggest mistakes Death Guard players make is they will take an entire melee play Marine squad, and then we come up against said World Eater player, and they walk up to the Rhino and go, aha, I will now charge the Rhino when the Rhino dies. And then 10 very angry fellows get outside.
It turns out this was a bad idea all along.
Yeah. Whereas the alternative is I'm going to walk up to your Rhino, I'm going to use a grenade stratagem, shoot with 2 melter guns, explode it, and then I'm going to charge the contents. And belchers are shared with melter guns, so I have took melter guns instead, just because sometimes you need a melter gun shot, especially when it's lethal 5s on my melters. Like,
I think because I listened to your chat with Liam VSL about that. Like, there was like it came up during that talk, and I was just like, this is so interesting to hear. Like, It's nice to be able to have a unit which has that kind of like nitty gritty
Yeah.
Equipment choices.
You got plasma pistols? What are you moaning about?
Oh, stop it. Stop it. Yeah, that's a real choice. Will I take the plasma pistol or bolt pistol? It's a tough one.
Do I take one big axe or two big axes?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's a funny one. Well, gentlemen, I think we are about there. We've been streaming for about an hour and a half, and it's been a good time. Everyone in chat and everyone who's still watching, thanks so much for hanging out. Appreciate you stopping in to say hi on this Saturday night. Is there anything anyone wants to say before we sign off?
Yeah, actually, I will. So,
I've changed my mind.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you all next week.
No, I actually just wanted to give a shout out to kind of all of the guys in the World It Is Discord. So, like, lots of people know that this has been my first tournament. They know that it's not my first rodeo, but like our community, Aiden, I'm sorry, but our World It Is community is single-handedly one of the most wholesome and helpful communities out there. I think like so many people will just jump on board, give constructive criticism. Like, doesn't matter if they're like much like you. Like, I'm part of your Discord, Aiden, and
Oh, I'm a tyrant. I call people shit all the time.
Yeah.
I'm awful. I'm a
I
horrible
love
person.
this.
No, I don't
It's
know.
so
My
toxic.
friend Tank's always got a good thing to say about you, Aiden. My buddy Tank. So,
I think
thank you.
any place where you can, like, you've got like 5 players, all the rest of it, they just sit there and go, right, what do you want to know? Like, let's run this through. Let's see where I can help you. Our community, much like yours, is filled with people that are just so eager and happy to help. Even Dara has sat down with me and just gone, right, let's run through some stuff.
What do you mean,
So-
even Dara?
Well, you're my nemesis, so you know
That's
usually.
true. That's true.
So yeah, I just kind of wanted to say thank you to everyone in the world who's Discord, and also Aiden. Like, you are my IRL coach, so
You better not go 0-5.
I don't know if you know this, but Aiden has had me under house arrest. He says that every full squad I paint gets me a meal. So
That's true, yeah.
like a cookie.
but yeah,
That's strong.
just that. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Just thank you to everyone. Really,
Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
looking forward to it.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's been good vibes, and I've been really enjoying like getting back into the buzz of like, you know, kind of tournament build up and stuff. And it's really cool because there's obviously the 4 of us going. I think there's a couple of people from the Discord as well who were saying they're going to be around, and Jack will be there as well. So it's going to be quite the crowd. So if you are at the Manchester GT or even in Manchester in general, feel free to stop by and say hello, because we will be out there claiming skulls or whatever it is that Aiden will be claiming. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, it's going to be a good time. I think for now, though, that is probably all from us here. Yeah, looking forward to it, guys. Can't wait to see you all next week.
Yeah, I'll see you all there.
Yeah, until then, folks, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.
They're on.